Shout out to Steve Trang. Jump on the Steve Trang. We real estate disruptors.
Hey everybody, thank you for joining us for today's episode of Real Estate Disruptors. Today we've got Tony Javier with Real Estate Masters 10X TV back for the second time. And Tony flew in from San Diego to talk about how to get motivated seller leads using TV commercials. Now, I am on a mission to create 100 millionaires, and the information on this podcast alone is enough to help you become a millionaire in the next 5 to 7 years. If you'll take consistent action, you will become one. Now, right now, you might have some questions about your business. I have made my team available to answer those questions for you to the best of their ability. So if this sounds like something that might be interesting to you, send me a message on Instagram, and we'll see if we can point you in the right direction. And the show is brought to you by our company, InvestorLift. Get access to over 2 million cash buyers across the country. Go to InvestorLift.com, put in Disruptors to get 10% off. And if you get value today, please tag it from below. Share this episode right now. That way we can all grow together. And don't forget, we do have Party in the Disruption tomorrow and Certainty Talks on Friday. And this is a live show. So please ask your questions for Tony to answer. You ready?
Let's do it.
All right. So you were on the show not that long ago. I want to say beginning of this year?
Last September.
Yeah. All right. So it's been a year already.
A little over a year, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So what's changed since the last time you were on this show?
Yeah, so we launched 10X TV, Real Estate Masters TV is what we formerly called it, and that was back in January of last year. So September of last year, we'd only been doing it 9 months, right?
Right.
So we were just getting some data. Things were going really well with our clients, and now we're up to about 115 real estate investors we're servicing with TV commercials around the country.
Wow.
And so we're trying to grow that. The problem is we're selling out of markets. So
you do have a limited supply.
We do, yeah. So that's a struggle. So we are adding radio to the mix.
Mm-hmm.
We kind of slowly are doing that right now because radio and TV go really well together because of the way media works. TV, I feel like, is the number one way to build credibility in your market and also get you a really good return. And radio commercials are very similar to that. They just don't have the visual aspect of it.
Yeah.
So we're growing and we're trying to figure out how to expand.
So right now, I had a friend, and I remember he told me, like, I want to say maybe like 7 years ago, it was a presidential election.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, the month of November was a nothing burger, right? Because we cannot compete with all the politicians.
Mm-hmm.
They have more money. Well, not just the politicians these days, but the PACs. They have more money than they know what to do with.
Yep.
What is your guys' experience with this?
Yeah, so they pay 2 to 3 times market rate. I mean, and stations know that they'll pay it, so they jack up the rates for some commercials. So luckily, our avatar is different than a lot of others to where we buy inexpensive commercials in a certain time of day that politicians don't buy as much of. So we've been lucky. So if someone's spending $5,000 a month in the months that the election commercials are running, they might see a 10 to 20% drop in the commercials that they get.
Oh, that's not too bad.
So instead of $5,000 a month, they might be spending like $4,000 a month, right? So luckily, we haven't had a huge issue with that, but there's going to be some months this year that we're just not going to be able to get as many commercials because we're not going to spend 2 to 3 times the market rate for our clients.
Right.
It's just not going to make sense.
So you got, so you started adding radio. How long ago did you add radio?
We literally just started last week.
Okay.
I reached out to a handful of clients. They're like, heck yeah, we're going to do it because they're doing really well with TV.
Mm-hmm.
So we're slowly rolling out our clients right now, adding radio, and then probably the next few months, we're going to give that just access to our clients, and then maybe start selling it more to the masses. Because like if for instance, if someone wants to market in Phoenix and we're already sold out in Phoenix, if one of our clients doesn't want to do radio in Phoenix, then we can sell them radio,
right?
And help other people that way.
Got it. So you have this situation where you've capped, or not capped, but there is a cap of how much you can penetrate the real estate investor business owner.
Right.
So how close, do you have an idea of how close you are to that cap?
Yeah, so we could sell about 350 spots throughout the country, and that's if we sell out even just all of the smaller markets. So really, it's probably 250 to 300 for the main markets. Like a Phoenix, a Dallas, Kansas City. Those types of cities.
Right.
So yeah, I'd say between 250 to 300 spots. So we're almost halfway there. But again, the struggle is if the next 10 people could inquire about markets that are already sold out.
Yeah. What are the big markets right now that to the top of your head is available today?
Well, off the top of my head, I mean, we have some small markets like, Chattanooga, let's say, Tennessee. There's a lot of like small markets on the East Coast. Like we have Myrtle Beach, there's a spot open. Charleston, we're sold out. We've got a waiting list there. There's actually some good markets we have waiting lists in. Let's see, what else do we have? I want to say Tucson, we may have a spot there.
Mm-hmm.
Some of those mid to small markets are actually really good markets because you can spend a small ad spend. And when I say small ad spend, $5,000 a month to me is a small ad spend.
Yeah.
And guys are making anywhere from 30 to 50 to 100. Some are making up to $200,000 a month on a $5,000 ad spend. So it's just absolutely annihilating in some markets. But as you know, it's all about, not just the commercial and who you're hitting, but it's also about the sales process, right?
Right.
Which is obviously where you come in. So if they can convert on the other side, we can drive the leads. If they can convert, they can, that's why we call it 10x TV. I mean, it's hitting 10 times more people, 10 times faster, 10 times easier. And our clients that are doing really well are getting a 10x return or more.
Yeah. I was actually having a conversation with someone the other day, and we're talking about how we're not spending as much on marketing right now. We've cut back on marketing as this market has evolved.
Uh-huh.
And they were asking me like, well, how is this affecting your business right now? I was like, well, our guys are definitely having to work harder, but the marketing, all it really, like, we already have everyone in Phoenix, right? Like, there was a point in time where we skip traced the entire market. And so really we only have a handful of people that we haven't, not a handful of people. There's only so many people that we haven't reached,
Mm-hmm.
right? So all the marketing is doing for us is finding the ones that's ready to go now, right? So instead of having like this kind of like this massive gray area, we have like, all right, here are the 10 dots we need to focus on right now. So, and that's the power of advertising. So what is your, your group, the people that you're working with, how are they experiencing this particular real estate market?
Well, I think the ones that are smart are still going to market. Like there's some that literally just stopped all their marketing, right? I mean,
you have a list for that.
What's that?
That's a list we're going to need in a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I don't think that's a smart. I mean, obviously there's different situations. There's some people that literally have all of their dollars into flips and they just need to stop marketing and put the money into flips, get them sold and put it back into marketing. I understand that. But I don't think it's smart to just stop all your marketing.
Mm-hmm.
Scale back, maybe, be smarter, obviously. Even the time of year we're coming to. I mean, we're coming into October, November, December. That's when people are slower. But I think a lot of people are slower also because they pause or stop their advertising or slow it down in those months. So of course you're going to slow down. For me, I like pushing through those months and spending the same amount because just like you said, I mean, if you're not running in December on TV and someone's ready to sell, they're not going to see you until January. It may be too late, right? So for me, November, December might be a little bit slower, but we've also had some really good months, and we're also getting in front of those people that may not call you till January, but they may write your number down in November, December.
Yeah, well, for us, in my own personal experience, November, December, lead flow is always lower. However, those are always a larger margins because everyone else has stopped or slowed down. Right. But at the same time, if you're gonna sell right now in December, then you're clearly more motivated. So that's been my experience. Have you guys seen the same thing?
Yeah. We've had some really big months in November, December, and January when people say they're slow. Absolutely.
Yeah.
When people are slowing down, speed up. Why not? Or stay the same pace at least.
Yeah. So as far as your clients, I mean, are they seeing any kind of like? Because I think what's kind of cool, right? Because you have audience or clients across the country. You kind of have like this ebb and flow. You kind of see what's happening on a nationwide level. Mm-hmm. What you must have some sort of intel what you're seeing out there.
From what standpoint, like real estate prices?
As far as real estate market, like what area is slow, what area is hot, and so on.
Yeah, it's definitely market specific. I mean, for instance, Wichita, Kansas is my main market where I do real estate, and we bought a house a few months ago. We thought we'd sell it for $90,000, which lower end property, obviously. We put on the market for $115,000 and got a full price cash offer. $25,000 above what we thought it was going to sell for. I'm keeping a lot of the properties we're buying. So this is one of the first properties I've sold this year, just because we're stacking up on rentals for a lot of different reasons. And so our market's hot. I mean, it's still like, it may not be $20,000 over asking price like it used to be on a $150,000 house, but you're still getting your asking price, which is still higher than you may have thought you were going to get in the first place, right? So markets that didn't get hit in 2007, Wichita, Kansas, those kinds of markets, I think are really strong. San Francisco, I think, is getting annihilated in some different areas of San Francisco. San Diego is dipping a little bit where I live. I think we're down 5% or so in the last 6 months, which I think it's just going to bounce back. I think it's just a temporary correction. So yeah, I mean, we're seeing stuff happen in different markets, but from what I see from about 90% of our clients is, instead of getting $20,000 over asking, they're getting asking.
Yeah.
Instead of selling in, 1 day or 1 week or less, it's taking 30 days, 60 days.
Right.
People are freaking out after 30 days and they're like, oh my God, my house has this, I'm going to slash the price. And it's like, no, I mean, just be patient, in most markets, because still the inventory is really low. And I think that's where some of the price drop, that's where people say, oh, so many prices are dropping percentage-wise in market. It's because people are freaking out because they're not selling in the first week.
Yeah.
We've gotten so spoiled.
Well, not just spoiled. I mean, our perspective has completely shifted. Like the things we were saying as this market was shifting is like, the people that haven't been here for a while aren't used to the fact that houses don't sell in 2 or 3 days, and you don't always get multiple offers. And we said that, and now we're experiencing what other people kind of like, this trauma that they're going through. It's massive panic, lots and lots of panicking. So, with doing TV, I know for me, a lot of the leads that come in, generally, when they call in, not generally, but a good percentage of them, maybe a third, something along those lines, they're calling in already listed. Are you guys finding that right now?
No.
No?
Just from TV or just in general?
TV.
No, I mean, we get a percentage, obviously, that are going to be listed, but for the most part, they're off market.
All right. How are you guys handling it if it is listed?
Well, my acquisitions person is licensed, so there's going to be some things you have to make sure you do if you're licensed. But if they're listed, most likely it's not a deal. Unless they're like, hey, my house is listed for 150, we'll take 120, and they didn't tell their agent, or, they're not lowering the price. So that's honestly over 20 years. In 20 years, that's only happened, I think, once or twice, where they called us and that same thing happened, and we ended up negotiating and buying the house. Yeah. But for the most part, if they're listed, they're probably not good deals.
Got it. And you mentioned something about a joint venture earlier.
Yeah. So last year, when I came on the podcast back in September, we started seeing some really good data from our clients, because we started earlier in the year launching TV commercials. And we had clients coming to us and being like, first month I made 50 grand, second month I made 100 grand on $5,000 ad spend. I mean, I use that a lot because there's a lot of markets you can spend $5 grand and get a lot of commercials. And I thought, okay, how can we implement TV commercials in markets ourselves? I'm like, I don't really want to build a sales team. You know how it is. Building one good sales team is hard enough. Building a bunch throughout the country is hard enough. So we started joint venturing with other people around the country that, if they wanted to partner with TV commercials, that we would figure out how to do TV commercials with them. They would not have as big an investment up front. We'd take some risk with them, and we would split the profits. Yeah. And so that's what we're doing. We're slowly scaling out a joint venture model to where if someone says, hey, I can't pay for TV myself and I don't want to do it myself, that we will come in and do it with them. And then we also provide funding if they want to do flips and wholetails, and provide some support on the additional support on the back end for them.
It's really smart. Yeah.
So basically, we're building a sales army and utilizing our strategy that we know works really well, and not having to create a whole team around it or a big team around it.
Yeah, that's brilliant. How many joint ventures do you have around the country at the moment?
We're doing 5 right now, and then we want to figure out how to get a scalable model, because even if we pick really good people to do it, we still have to do some tracking and accountability and things of that nature. So yeah, we just have 5 right now.
Okay. And then if someone was interested right now in the joint venture, like how does that work?
Yeah. So the joint ventures, the way they've happened at the beginning, it was newer investors that have done some deals, which I want that as a requirement. They need to know the business, right? They came to us and they're like, man, for us to be able to afford to do TV commercials and make sure we have at least 3 months of ad spend, because first month, typically our clients are doing deals and making money. But there are times where it does take some time to ramp up the leads and for those deals to convert. So I say plan at least 3 months. I'd like to say 6 months, but 3 months, usually 90% of our clients are making money and doing pretty well within 3 months. And so some people were like, I just can't commit to that. And so we're like, okay, we'd vet them a little bit. We like you. We like your market. We can spend $5,000 a month in that market. And then we'd figure out, do we provide the ad spend? Do we split the ad spend? How do we work that? And we do it based on just different factors. So that's been the way it started. I'd say about somewhere around 6-9 months ago as we started that. And then we also had a client that came to us and said, hey, I bought a second market with you guys. We're doing really well in both markets, but I just don't have the capacity to take on both. And so I saw what one of them was doing in one of those markets in Texas, and I'm like, I will be your JV partner there. So we will put a lead manager in place, help you with the leads, help you with whatever you need. And like last month we spent $6,000, and I think we made $80,000 in that market, off a $6,000 ad spend. And so I want to figure out how to get people on TV that they can't afford it if I feel like they can do deals. So whether it's them become a client of ours or us to JV with them.
Yeah. All right. And then, so we're talking about joint venturing now. One thing that we also talked about earlier, offline before we started, is expanding outside of real estate.
Mm-hmm.
So like my team is breathing down my neck. It's like, Steve, we need to do more sales training outside of real estate investors because the market's only so big.
Mm-hmm.
An understandable, conversation. At the same time, I don't know a lot of industries where the margins are so large, the margin of error is so large that, you can spend a significant amount on the sales team. I'm thinking generally speaking, if you have like an insurance salesperson or, you're selling most items, there's not enough margin there to justify spending a good amount on sales training.
Mm-hmm.
So you're talking about expanding outside of real estate. So what has been your experience in that?
We haven't started that process yet. So we just did the rebranding. If you can see, actually can't see my shirt there. How do we? There's a little delay here. There you go. 10X TV. There you go. So there's the new logo. So we decided to rebrand it. We were calling it Real Estate Masters TV, but we decided to change it to 10X TV because we are going to expand it outside. And so the way that it looks is we know that real estate works really well, partly because I've got 10 years of TV experience now, so I know what works and what doesn't for myself, and now we've tested it, and it's worked for a lot of clients. And so how do we take that outside of the real estate industry? And like you said, we have big margins in real estate, right?
Right.
So, you could have $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 months, right? So people can afford TV, people can afford sales training. For scaling outside of real estate, it's just going to have to be the same thing where it's high ticket items, right?
Yeah.
I may call it high ticket TV, right, or something like that. But it's going to be attorneys, it's going to be doctors, it's going to be roofing companies. Roofing companies have amazing margins, and they can turn a roof in a couple days. It's going to be HVAC contractors, basically anywhere where there's high ticket items, high margins, and their turnaround time is low.
Yeah.
And obviously, attorneys may be the exception to that because sometimes it'll take them a few months or maybe even a year,
their margins
2
are huge.
years to get their
Because I
big
think
cases
you
won.
don't really need to reinvent this, right? You just have to stay home one morning and just watch The Price is Right, and you got all those attorney ads like, have you been mesothelioma or have you been injured in a car accident? You already have your target audience probably from that.
If they don't already have someone running their commercials.
Well, right, but know the avatar, what industries they're willing to pay.
Absolutely.
You don't have to reinvent the wheel.
You're right.
Yeah. Got it. Okay, so you said you're just exploring this at the moment.
Yeah, my media guy that runs this back end for me. So the story behind TV, I'll just tell it real quick, is I met a guy at a networking event, and he invited me to a poker game. So we go down to the guy's basement, the friend of a friend, and I see this guy that I've noticed that's on TV, And so this whole celebrity factor of like, oh wow, it's cool, man, I get to talk to this guy. So I sit next to him and start talking to him, and I was like, hey man, how your TV commercials doing? He's like, man, we're doing like $2 million a year of construction business, and all we do is TV. And I'm like, wow, that's super cool. And so I start drilling him on it, and he's like, it might be good for your business. Why don't you call my guy Drew, and he can tell you more about it. He's the one that did my production and did the ad buying and stuff like that. So I told him my business and everything, and he's like, yeah, for probably a few $1,000s a month, I can get you hundreds of commercials a month. And I'm like, oh, that's sweet. And so I come up with the scripts and, give him the graphics I think would be good. So we collectively worked on it, and within 30 days I had a commercial, and spent $3,000 my first month and made $35,000. And then that was 8 years ago, or 10 years ago now. And it's been anywhere from a 5 to 12x return on my money since then. So that's kind of how TV started. Go back to your last question. What was your question again?
I was talking about what is your plan or how do you plan on growing this other arm?
Yeah. So, so what I was getting to is that my media guy, Drew, has been doing this for 20 years. I mean, he knows TV like the back of his hand. So for me, it's me going out and finding people, educating them on what works. I've got a really good formula that works. I mean, when we sat down and we said, okay, we're going to launch this out, like, what is the formula? What made our commercials work when some other people's didn't? Or, what could be the drawback? And so we have 5 main things that we went through that said, okay, these are the 5 things that need to be really good for commercials. And when someone comes to me and they say, hey, my commercials didn't do very well, it's usually because they're missing one or quite a few of those things. And so, so basically what we do is we take that formula, plug it into any other business, and then my media team, which is Drew and his team that's behind the scenes that does all the ad buying, they're really good at negotiating rates. So they can go to stations where if you went directly, I mean, you're a good negotiator, obviously, but like if you went to a station and you said, hey, I want to spend money on your station, can you tell me what the package would be? Can you tell me what, times of day to be on and all that kind of stuff? They'd probably try and sell you the most expensive stuff. They probably wouldn't understand your avatar. I mean, that's happened to me so many times with different things that I've done where they just don't understand the avatar. And they're just gonna be way more expensive. So like last week I had a client come to us, or someone come to us and say, hey, we started TV. I just want to fully disclose that. We started it like 2 months ago and we just not getting any leads. And I said, how much you spending? He said $5,000, or it might've been like $4,000, 4,500, something like that. And I said, how many commercials are you getting a month? He said 40. And I'm like, so we already have one client in that market. So I went and looked, and I said, for that ad spend, we can get you like 400 to 500 commercials a month, right? And then what shows are you airing on? So he kind of named some, and I'm like, that is not your avatar. Like, they're totally screwing you.
Yeah.
So anyway, so we're gonna, and we've done that with probably a handful of people where they're like, my TV commercials didn't do well, and so not only are they on the wrong stations and maybe shows, but their phone number's not easy to remember, their website's too long, their message isn't clear. I mean, there's so many different things that you think it would be simple. I mean, I've been doing it a long time, but even just from a marketing perspective, you would think that really smart people would be able to figure some of those things out, but sometimes they're just disconnected on a couple of those things, and it makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah, I mean, marketing is one of those things that you can learn if you go out and like spend some time to figure it out, but it's not intuitive. Like, there's just so many areas that things could break if you don't think about it, right? So what are those things that you're saying, like, they're must-have as far as a commercial? You're saying, like, you're looking at his thing, he doesn't have the 5 pieces. Like, what are some things that are must-haves in a TV commercial? Yeah,
so I mean, you could have the perfect commercial, but if you're not hitting the right avatar, if you don't know who it is and you're not hitting those right shows, then you're hitting the wrong people. You're just not going to get the phone to ring. So that's one thing. Two is a clear call to action. I mean, have you ever seen like a billboard or just like, pretty decent commercials, and they just have no call to action, right? You know? And so for ours, we have a clear and defined call to action, and it's there on the screen the whole time for them to see it. There's easy to remember phone number and website. Like, if someone can't remember the phone number, someone can't remember the website, they're going to Google and you're not going to be found. I mean, you might be if you're doing PPC, or if you have a bunch of reviews on Google and it pops up on the map, or if your SEO is really good. But chances are, you're going to be competing with a lot of others. Even if they do see you on the top, they're going to see the next four guys, and they're going to go, oh, maybe I need to call them, right?
Right.
So that's a big thing. And then the messaging, you have 30 seconds to get your message across. So like it needs to be clear, it needs to be concise. And I don't consider myself a copywriter, but I feel like I'm pretty good at like copywriting when I write like for my, websites and stuff like that. So I wrote my scripts in the beginning and they worked really well. And it's just like, who are you? What do you do? What problem can you solve? And what are the advantages of using you?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's just, you have to portray that in 30 seconds.
Yeah,
If
what's
you
in it for
don't,
me? If someone wanted to see one of your ads, one of your commercials, like where would they go to find this?
You go to remtv.com, remtv.com. You can't see the full commercial, but you can see some clips of it. I don't know that I really have a full commercial on a website right now.
Yeah.
More of the clips of the commercials that we have.
Got it.
Yeah.
So you're early on this journey to expand. Do you have like a time frame on this?
To expand?
To outside real estate?
Yeah. So, we really want to service the real estate industry well. So we want to do that really well for the next probably 6 to 12 months, especially as we add radio to the mix. I just hired a decent sized marketing team in the last, I think it was about 6 months ago. And so we've been ramping a lot of things up since then. And so I want to make sure that we get everything dialed in before we start outside of our industry. But I would say we'd probably start testing in the next 6 to 9 months, just putting some feelers out there, maybe just, reaching out to some other people in different industries and seeing what the results are, especially those that have already done TV in different industries. Right. Get some data, and then when we feel like we've got some good data, then just start launching.
Yeah. So we just had our quarterly meeting this past weekend, and so they're like, we really want to do this. Like, I don't know if we're ready, but let's just take a small step. Let's take some baby steps and see if there's an actual desire for it. So the quarterly rock for this quarter, the final quarter of the year, is to just do one general sales webinar. And from that one general sales webinar, we'll find out how many people are actually interested, right? And then from there, we'll see if we have audiences that are willing to pay. And then after that, if we have audiences willing to pay, then we'll actually start applying resources to fulfilling it. But, taking just little baby micro steps just to see if the market's there before we expand.
Well, the way that I feel like I'm going to do it with TV is, so right now when someone comes to us, we don't have an educational platform where we can just show people how to do TV and they do it on their own. We could do that, but chances of someone going and implementing all of those steps that I told you is very slim. Even when we do the implementation, every once in a while we have a client that just doesn't have time to get us just some basic information for us to get their commercial together, right? Yeah. But I feel like to be able to launch to the masses, I think we'll probably put together a course that shows people how to do TV commercials if they want to do it on their own. And then if they decide that they want us to do the implementation for them, they'd have to go through an application and, go through a sales team and make sure they're a good fit to work with. So we'll definitely do it a little bit different, where we'll have an educational platform that if they want to do it themselves, they can. And then if they want us to do it for them and pay us, then we'll do it.
Got it. Yeah. And then I know that you were talking about there's some markets that are open, other markets that are sold out, even have a wait list. Do you guys still have that policy of one client per market?
No, we have 2 to 3 people per market.
Okay.
Yeah. So Phoenix, Arizona, big enough for 3 people. It's a large area. Atlanta, Georgia, Dallas, Texas. There's some markets that they will allow 3 people. There's probably smaller markets that could even allow 3 people, but we cap it at 2 just so they don't feel like they're fighting over too many leads and that kind of thing. I mean, if you think about it, there's hundreds and hundreds, maybe even thousands of investors in a given market. So if you have 3 or 4 or 5 people on TV, which a lot of them would be our clients, or maybe running with another media company, it's probably not gonna get saturated. But yeah, 2 to 3 per market. And we have several markets where we have 3 clients in a market, and all 3 are doing well. So
how far would 5,000 get me in Phoenix?
5,000 would not get you anywhere. Yeah, it would be. I mean, some of the bigger markets, even 10 grand could probably get you by. We'd probably recommend closer to maybe 15, but I think 10 grand could probably get you enough commercials to make it worthwhile. But yeah, I mean, I would say, I meant to do the stat on this, but I think probably 80% of the markets in the U.S. $5 grand a month would get you would get you would be enough ad spend to get you quite a few commercials. And when I say quite a few, we're going to get you at least 300 minimum.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some markets where someone will say, I can spend $5,000, which is our minimum of what we want someone to spend or we require someone to spend. And sometimes we can get like 1,000 commercials a month. It's crazy.
Wow.
Yeah.
So we're going to jump into the audience questions, but before we do that, we're going to do a quick break. So let's go ahead and take that break. Hey, Steve Trang here. A lot of you have been asking me for sales management training. I didn't feel quite right teaching it, but I found the perfect guy to teach it for us. So Ren, tell us about it.
Steve, we're going to be introducing some really intense fundamentals and philosophy behind the management of sales teams. Have a ton of experience building really high performance sales teams and really taking a little bit of this and a little bit of that, management practices and theories from all over the place and brought them together to create a unique whole person perspective that drives low performers to high performers and elite caliber salespeople into sales champions. And couldn't be more excited to partner with you on it and the Sales Disruptors brand.
For sure. So go to disruptors.com/success and we'll see you at the next event. Hey. All right. So we already have a bunch of questions coming in, and man, Instagram is definitely paying attention today. So first question from Isaac McGee on Instagram is, what is the name of this guy's business?
So when we launched the TV program, Real Estate Masters was my educational company. So we called it Real Estate Masters TV. So we're in the process of switching it over to, if you can see the shirt, 10X TV.
Mm-hmm.
And we want to do 10X TV because, for the name of it, a lot of our clients are getting over 10X, but it's, again, reaching 10 times more people, 10 times faster, 10 times easier, and 10 times more authority in your market based on that. And then also we want to launch other things outside of real estate. So 10X
Right.
TV is the name of the TV brand.
Any concerns about, there's a big guy who really pushes that slogan. Any concerns at all about that?
No, not at all. I mean, if he contacts us, we'll figure something out. But I think we own 10xtv.co. We've got some different domains and some different things. And I don't know, we may look at trademarking, but I doubt he has anything to do with TV. I think it's all media based.
Yeah. We did Pardon the Disruption, and the first thing we did research on it, and we saw there's actually multiple podcasts out there called Pardon the Disruption.
Oh, yeah?
Had no idea. The first thing we did was trademark it so that no one can come after us.
Right.
Even though we wouldn't necessarily enforce it on someone else. We just want to protect ourselves from having someone pursue us.
Right.
And our trademark attorney says, well, you don't have to worry about the other Pardon the Disruption guys. You have to worry about the Pardon the Interruption guys because they have the debate show before you did. And I was telling him, like, well, I hope ESPN comes after me. And I would wilt, right? I mean, there's no question about that.
ESPN is part of the interruption or just
Pardon the Interruption.
Yeah.
And there's no doubt I would wilt, right? Like, I don't have the money to go against those guys. But it'd be a pretty cool story, right?
Yeah.
It's like, like ESPN's coming after a little guy like myself. Pat Locke says on Instagram, it's not slower unless you think it is. Great point. I love the mindset, but Phoenix is tough as hell, and so is San Diego at the moment. I actually talked to someone yesterday in San Diego, and he's like, this deal I had that took 8 months to clear probate is no longer a deal. It's like, man, like this was an 80K spread when I locked it up.
Mm-hmm.
Today, it's I had to go get my earnest money back.
Oh, man.
Camilo on YouTube. So True had a house I almost did a 25K price drop on, but held on another 2 weeks and ended up getting a full price offer, and appraisal just came back above.
There you go. Good job.
Yeah.
Be patient.
Yeah, you got to hold out. So Stephen Caller asks, what does a joint venture look like? So we kind of touched on it a little bit, but maybe you can go into a little more detail of what a joint venture would involve.
Yeah. So we would want to pick a mark, first of all, that would be a small ad spend, right? Because we are probably going to participate in that ad spend most likely and or participate in funding the deals in that market. And it's going to be market specific. So if someone wants to find out about it, they just go to our website, rmtv.com, fill out the form, schedule a call with my team or myself, depending on when it comes in. And we talk about what the market looks like, what is your experience level, what are we bringing to the table, how much are we investing in the commercials if we do invest in the commercials ourselves, and then we split the profits. Usually it's a 50-50 split. So if an experienced investor comes to us and say, hey, what's your JV split like? it probably doesn't make sense because if they have a sales team, if they can afford to do the ad spend, they're going to make so much more money without us, right? And they don't need us necessarily. But if someone doesn't quite have the money to, again, have the 3 months worth of ad spend, we'll waive all of our fees. We do have some fees involved with what we do. And we put our money where our mouth is. So like we're taking a risk with them by putting our time and effort in getting commercials up and running for them and spending time by, doing a little bit of coaching if they need it. We have a couple new investors that are in our JV partnership. So I spend some time with them, coaching them, going over numbers. They use our deal analyzers. They'll utilize my team if they need it. So we give a lot more resources for JV partnerships than we do just our clients. Usually our clients, if they're more experienced, we get them on TV, we go over their numbers, we support them on TV, and that's all they need. But joint venture partners typically are going to need more than that.
Right. Makes total sense. And Isaac wants to know, how much do we need to spend a month? So you've given some figures there. So answer it generally speaking. And Isaac, if you can let us know what market you're in, he could probably give a more clear answer.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, $5,000 a month, like I said, can get typically hundreds and hundreds of commercials a month. So let me give you an example. Trying to think of a market that is not taken. Chattanooga. I think there's probably close to 1 million people in that market total. When you look at the main market and the surrounding area, $5,000 a month definitely gets hundreds of commercials a month. So if it's, again, like a Dallas, Texas, Atlanta, LA for sure, it's one of the biggest markets. New York City encompasses 15 million people. You'd have to spend $30,000 a month there. I mean, it's crazy. But the spreads are big there, so it could work. And you're reaching a lot of people. So yeah, to be safe, $5,000 to $10,000 can get 90% of markets throughout the U.S.
And then Stephen Coller's follow-up question is, what would you suggest for ad spend in a secondary market like Notre Dame, Indiana, which has 290,000 population?
So Notre Dame is what's that?
Bend?
No, not Bend. Where's Notre Dame? What city is that? I want to say Great Bend. No, that's not it. Anyway, whatever city that's in, I can tell you right now, I know the number because I looked at it the other day. You're going to hit a little less than 1 million people total. I think it's 300,000 households. So you're going to take that times about 3. So about 900,000 people. You can spend $5,000 a month there. That is a market. You can spend $5,000 a month. I'd probably recommend, if you can do it, 7 to 8, because that's the difference between $5,000 and $8,000 is 2 stations, 300 to 400 commercials. Once you start bumping up your ad spend 1,000 to 2,000, we can typically add another station, a bunch of shows, and then get you a couple hundred more commercials.
Got it. And then Ian Ross wants to know, in your experience, should the call to action change depending on the avatar?
The avatar is going to be similar, but if someone does land or someone buys multifamily or something like that, what we do is we call our system a franchise-like system. So we know the scripts that work really well. So we're going to stick pretty dang close to those scripts because they've worked for a lot of real estate investors throughout the country. These are the ones that I started with, that I tested, and then we tested in other markets. So if someone says that they do land, we can say we buy houses and land, or we buy houses, land, and multifamily, or we love mobile homes. We might add some things like that if there's a certain asset class that they're looking to buy. We actually have one guy that's crushing land right now. He's in, I'm going to tell you the exact market, but it's in the South. And he added land to his commercial. In the last 3 months, he's done $200,000 land deals because they don't know what they're worth. They're like 10 acres out in the sticks a little bit. He picked them up for like 25,000, split them up into 3 lots, and sold them for like 150. I mean, the numbers were pretty similar on both deals.
Yeah.
So yeah, we can tweak it a little bit for what their audience is, even though the avatar, the person that you're marketing to, is pretty similar.
Yeah. And then follow-up question from Ian. What were some of the challenges you faced as a company getting to the state where you have the confidence you have now in terms of knowing what numbers work in different markets?
Number one, my media guy. I mean, when I went to him and I said, hey, we're going to launch this throughout the U.S., let's create a system for this. So we documented every single market, what the amount of households is, which can tell us about the amount of population that's there. And then we put a range. when I say $5,000, that's the minimum. Like you can, like some of those markets, you can spend up to 15, right? Or even more. So when I say $5,000, that's the minimum to get started. I recommend if someone can afford it to go a little bit higher. So basically we took a range in each of those markets and said, okay, if someone's in Kansas City, Missouri, it needs to be $8,000 minimum, and they could start up to $20,000 if they wanted to. So really it was just documenting that, and then we test that and we'd put those ad spends out there and then start launching our clients and realize $5,000 the minimum did great, and then we kind of like say, okay, do you want to add a little bit more? Do you want to test $7,000? And then, okay, that works even better. Okay, do you want to test $10,000? Okay, maybe that didn't work quite as well. Let's maybe bump it back down to 8. That's probably the sweet spot. So that's something we do for our clients. But to have the confidence to know what the ad spend is, I mean, it's just, doing it enough that we know what numbers work.
We're having the right people.
And having the right people for sure.
Yep. And then a follow up from Camilo on YouTube is the name of your site again.
remtv.com. So that stands for Real Estate Masters TV. Or an easier way to remember it is 10xtv.co. Not com, but co.
Should have just bought the .com.
We're trying to get it.
Yeah, there's some domains I try to buy, and I look at them, I was like, they want what for this?
Yeah.
That's not
going to crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah. And you got a shout out from Swindler. So shout out from Wichita.
What's up?
So in dealing with your group, right? Again, you have over 100 people, which is impressive, right? I mean, it's not even 2 years they've been doing this. What are some other trends you're seeing as in their business? Outside of just the market, is there anything else you're seeing out there? Because you have that much data out there?
Oh, yeah. It's crazy because we've had some well-known people come to us and say, we want you to run our TV commercials. And we started, I think it's about a year ago, we started running the phone number through our system so we could have the data, number one, and two, so we could listen to the phone calls. Because we'd have people come to us and say, we got 90 they would come to us and they'd say, our commercials aren't working. Okay, what's your data? How many calls are you getting? Well, we don't know. Okay, well, how's your sales team doing? I think they're doing okay. Like, okay, we need some more data. So we started running the phone numbers through our system, and partly because we could buy the number and know it's a good number. Even though we'd coach our clients, hey, buy this number or buy something similar, they would go buy some random number. So that was part of it too. So we would see calls coming in and the way they were handled, and you would think the people that you would probably know that have good businesses, I mean, they're probably still doing okay, but when their guys answer the phone, hello, or they're out and about, just, you can tell they're in their car, or like their kids are in the back screaming, just stuff like that. It's like people that I can tell the people who have their stuff dialed in, they're the ones doing the big numbers. The ones that don't have their stuff dialed in, that have kids screaming in the background and some guy answering that doesn't even say the business name, those are the ones that struggle a little bit, because even if you're on TV, if someone calls you and you don't answer with your business and you have screaming kids in the back, they're going to be like, who are you? Do I really trust you?
Right.
And you're very unpresent with them too, and they can feel that. So that's a trend, is that those that are doing really well, we listen to their calls, they're dialed in. They answer the phone, or they return the call back quickly. You can see that in the system. And they're converting, they're just converting. They're just doing the deals. I mean, we have clients that we call it the 100K club. We have a lot of clients doing $100,000 deals. If that phone call that came in, they didn't answer that call, and that person went somewhere else, that's $100,000 that really skew your numbers.
Yeah.
So that's one thing for sure. And then that's the biggest thing I think at the top of my head is just people dialing in their sales process. I mean, people spend so much money for leads, but they don't dial in their sales process.
Well, the marketing, right? I mean, that's the first step, is we want to get the marketing right. And after the marketing, then we got to get the sales right. And then once we get the sales right, then we got to get like the people right. And after that, we got to get the finances right. So there's like so many things we have to do well. And I think I've been guilty of this, right? You just assume everyone knows what to do and how to do it correctly and consistently. But without inspecting it, you just don't know. It's actually one of the reasons why Jason Lewis and I partnered up. We created we use Observe, which is basically can listen to all the inbound calls, and using AI, it can tell you like if it was a good call or not call.
It's called Observe.
We're using we call it our lead manager training, but we're using another program where they can just listen to all the calls and scores the calls, and then, you know, you can get a weekly report of like, you know, here are all the good calls to listen to, here are all the bad calls to listen to.
Yeah, we're looking at trying to implement that technology too. It's probably the same company that you're going through that we're looking at. Yeah.
Yeah. So it makes a difference, right? And then it helps me selfishly, right? As a trainer, I know what is working on the phones, right? Like I have ideas, I have beliefs, I know what, you know, works for my sales team, but like having this data, it just tells us exactly, right? Here's
priceless.
Here's what leads to the booked appointment. Here's what led to like, thank you for your time. So we have some more questions here. So Ian, is the reason you're sticking to real estate now is mainly to establish a track record? It seems like the principles of these numbers and factors would be applicable to almost any industry.
Oh, 100%. The biggest thing is I have a good name in this industry. I've been doing it 20 years. I've done close to 1,000 flips in my career. So for me to go into the real estate industry and say, I've been doing TV commercials for 10 years, I've been in business for 20, it's a lot easier for me to go into the real estate industry with credibility.
Yep.
If I go outside of that, it may be a little bit tougher. Maybe that's a limiting belief. I don't know. But for us to tackle the masses, it's going to be some trial and error. You know, when I launched this business, it was easy because I had 10 people that I went to and I said, hey, I'm going to test this out.
Mm-hmm.
And I think every single one of them said yes. And
Right.
so, and then I still have, I think, 8 of those clients that are still running this day 2 years later. So it's easy for me to get in this industry because I've been in it and have credibility in it. So to go outside of it just would be a little bit different. Again, it may be a limiting belief. It's just going to be definitely different to go outside. And I don't know, maybe it's going to be a lot easier because it's the masses instead of those that are actually doing deals in real estate.
Yeah, I mean, it's you've got the same questions I've got, right? Because I've been doing this for 15 years, right? We've been doing the sales training for some time now.
Mm-hmm.
I go outside of real estate, like how much traction am I going to get?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think the limiting beliefs you got, I share those same exact limiting beliefs.
Yeah.
What is the biggest struggle you face today?
Biggest struggle? Oh, that's a great question. You asked me this last time. I would say just planning the next move. You know, I'm comfortable enough, and I say this with all the gratitude in the world, that I don't have to create anything above and beyond what I'm doing now, just because I've got enough passive and residual income to live a comfortable lifestyle. But I think I'm like you. I just want to create. I want to do different things. I want to make impact and all those kinds of things. So I think it's just the next step. You know, I think that's one of the reasons I haven't gone outside of real estate investing yet for TV. Is just, you know, you put the right steps in place, you can have a great, fruitful business. If you put the wrong steps in place, then it's like you could go, man, why did I do this?
Oh,
I didn't have to. I did that recently with a company where I created a company that it sucked the energy out of me the last year.
Mm-hmm.
95% of the problems came from this company. And so we decided a few months ago, we're like, we're not doing it anymore. You know,
what company was that?
Gap funding.
Gap funding?
Yeah. So we're still doing some deals for real estate, and we may ramp it back up. We just made a lot of mistakes. We just lent to the wrong people. We didn't have really good processes in place. And 95% of the problems that came across my desk were these deals.
Yeah. Well, I remember you announcing it
Yeah.
at Family Mastermind,
Yeah.
right? Which, you know, I don't know if you were planning on going last month, or was it earlier this month?
I did. I went for a day.
Oh, you did go?
Yeah.
Oh, you did go. Yeah.
Yeah.
I went out. I had my flight booked, right? And I had the Airbnb. And by the way, Airbnb does not do returns for
Oh, really?
hurricanes. So I was like, oh, that sucks. It was so much cheaper to go like rent a house because I got a whole team going with me.
Right.
So we rented
right.
a house. And they're like, yeah, you know, you should have known the hurricanes are risk. Like, no, I shouldn't. I live in Arizona. I have no
I know,
idea
right.
what's hurricane
I didn't know
season.
until 3 days before or something like that. Yeah.
Right. So yeah, we got the Airbnb, whatever. But the morning of, because I was planning on leaving Monday first thing. No, I was planning on leaving Monday afternoon, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like my flight was still scheduled, and I'm just watching Hurricane Ian just kind of like trend this direction. So you flew in on Sunday?
Flew in on Sunday. I'm just gonna figure it out. If I have to fly out again, you know, whatever. But yeah.
Well, you also have the convenience of having a plane. So did you fly your plane there?
I didn't fly. It was too far to fly.
Too far to fly.
Yeah, from San Diego to Tampa, Florida. It's just it could have done it, but it would have been
It would have been a trek?
Yeah, and way expensive.
Yeah. So I guess side question, how far do you feel comfortable flying?
In my plane?
Mhm.
I'm going to Dallas next 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So about halfway across the country is about as far as I want to. Because I mean, 4-hour nonstop flight to Tampa, it's just a lot easier. You know, I love flying, but there's a point where you just don't want to spend all day in an airplane.
Yeah, it's not fun anymore.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Got it. So planning the next step is the biggest struggle right now. So really, is it the thinking the plan all the way through? Is it trying to figure out what to do? Trying to figure out what to do next, or
that's a great question. So my personality is ready, fire, aim.
Yeah,
right. And that's what I did with the gap funding company. Is I'm like, okay, I've got some money sitting. I can get some really good returns on it. I've already done, and it happened by accident. I had a hard money lender come to me and say, hey, will you lend some, down payments to my clients? And so that's how it started. And then after about a year and a half, they all cashed out perfectly, made, X% on my money, which was, unbelievable. So I'm like, oh, I'm gonna create a business out of this. And then I just, started lending to probably people I shouldn't have. And so for me, it's like, I'm a little gun shy because I'm comfortable where I am right now, time-wise and everything, that if I add something on, I don't want it to suck the energy out of me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh, I completely get it. That's the biggest risk we run right now is adding something else that will force us to deviate or increase liability to risking what we already have. Like when we're young and scrappy and have nothing to lose, take on the world.
Mm-hmm.
But we're no longer the young and scrappy, have nothing to lose.
Mm-hmm.
So
a little scrappy still, but not quite as young.
I can say I don't think I'm as scrappy. I'm capable of doing more, but I don't know if I'm as scrappy as 27-year-old me who had, visions of, taking over the world.
Oh, totally. And like even the deals that we're cleaning up right now, it's like we have deals across the country that, we had one person steal 80 grand from us on one deal. We had another one steal 70 grand from us on another deal. And it's like, the young me would have flown on a plane and just gone out there and found contractors and cleaned it up. But I'm like, dude, I'm too tired for that. Like, if I have to lose some money on these deals, I'll do it. But yeah, that's the regret. I mean, I've honestly, the last 6 months, I've been like, oh my gosh, there's some deals that I wish I wouldn't have funded that funded a year and a half ago that we're still cleaning up to this day.
Yeah.
So again, once we clean all these up and we may go back to it, it's a great model. And the market's weird too right now, right?
Yeah.
So like if we fund a deal and it doesn't close for 6 months, I don't know if that market is going to go up by 5% or go down by 20%. So then we're at bigger risk. So
what were the biggest lessons you learned in watching the gap funding company go sideways?
I think it's having standards. When I started lending people, I didn't put a perfect avatar in place. If I put a perfect avatar in place, I would say...
Which goes against like what you already knew.
Yeah, right? It's like an experienced investor, done enough flips, has some capital behind him. He may not have the capital due to down payment and, all of that, but he's got some capital work, to play with. They're not their own contractor. The ones that were two of the deals, three of the big deals we got screwed on, they were their own contractors. They would ask for draws. Oh, my guys are waiting there. They need to get paid. Can I get that draw? And now it's like, no, you need to have third-party contractors that are doing the work so we know they know what they're doing and we know where the money's going. It's not just going to some hourly guys that are supposedly doing. That's actually what happened on one of the deals is they were taking pictures of a corner of the rooms. They would paint the corner of the room and put flooring in the corner of the room, take a picture, and they would say that the whole room was done. Just stuff like that, just putting together the perfect avatar and not deviating from it. Because
these are guys that were like buying your TV as well, or just
no. We've funded some deals for our TV clients, but no, these are people outside.
Got it.
Yeah. So for those of you who are funding deals, if they've never done a deal before, huge liability. They have no idea what they're doing, right? Even if they say they do.
Yeah.
That's number one. If they're their own contractor, that's a no-no. And make sure you're in a price point that if you take the property back, it's not a huge nut. We've got a couple of $500,000 plus properties that we're paying, big mortgage payments on, and then we're having to fork over another 80 grand to do the renovations to get it where it needs to be. And it's just like, what was I doing? Yeah. Why did I approve these deals? So.
Well, it made sense at the time.
At the time, for sure.
Yeah, and again, that's like the lessons I'm learning, right? Like in the 40s, is like, oh, like we don't have to tackle every single thing. We don't have to say yes to every opportunity. And then again, considering the downside is like, okay, what's the risk if this goes wrong? Because that I don't have a risk calculator back here. It's just like, that sounds like a great opportunity. Let's go. So we're building up that part of the brain.
And it's hard to know who to trust too, because good salespeople will sell you that they're good people. I mean, if you had a conversation with this one lady that stole 80 grand from us, you would be like, there's no way she would steal 80 grand from you. Just the sweetest lady that was like, oh my gosh, we have great plans for this property. And it's like, I kind of let the emotions get involved of like, okay, I want to help this gal. They've got good margins, but they've never done a deal. That should have been my number one thing is they haven't done a deal. And that's why a lot of lenders, when they vet people, it's like, have you done at least 5 deals? I think that's usually their minimum.
Yeah, you typically see 5 on the application. We had this conversation in our office, and they were talking about like, we don't like to sell to seasoned buyers because seasoned buyers are really good negotiators, right?
And they're not going to pay as much too, right?
They're not going to pay as much. And they were talking about like, well, isn't it wrong to sell to someone who may be overpaying? Right? This is like an ethical conversation, right? And I challenged them on this only because I was once that stupid buyer, right? Who thought I can remodel an entire house for you to 15, 20K, right? But at the same time, you don't know what their carpenter experience is. You don't know if they got family that's going to be doing this work. Maybe they're just going to build sweat equity into it, right? But we tend to pass this judgment of like, oh, this guy, there's no way he can buy it at this price. He doesn't know what he's doing. And they're like, maybe we shouldn't sell it to him. It's like, I think there's a question of how dare you tell this guy he's incapable of doing this. Because like, if you ever sold a deal, like, oh, there's, it's not a good deal. And you see what they're done when they're done with it, it's like, wow, it's amazing what they've done with it. But our sales team at times is trying to pass judgments like, oh, there's no way they'd ever pay this much. So just things that kind of go through my mind. We're saying like, you lose money in your first deal. It's like, there are people that lose money in their first deal. There are people that knock it out. You just never know.
And if they lose the money, that's a learning lesson.
It's a learning
Either
lesson.
they won't do it again, or they realize they're not fit for the industry.
I mean, that was me. My first few years, right, is in working with other people that were flipping houses. It was just a given, right, that you lost money in your first deal. Like that's no longer a given now. Well, it might be now, but
Shouldn't be.
It shouldn't be. But the reality is, there's a lot of people on their first flip. They don't know how to budget a flip. They don't know how to manage contractors. They don't understand the finances. They don't know how maybe hard money works, right? They may not read that maybe there's a 3-month minimum. There's like a lot of things that can go wrong.
I think there's 2 things. One, the contractors, obviously. I mean, even if they bid 50, if it goes wrong, it's
going to go over budget. Just assume it's going to go over budget and over time.
Yeah, for sure. And then, oh God, what was the other thing I was just thinking? The calculations. Like someone sent me a message the other day. They're like, I've got this property locked up for $100,000. I think I can sell it for $150,000. I'm going to put $20,000 into it. I can make make an easy $30,000. And it's like, dude, real estate commissions, holding costs. Like I had to educate this guy a little bit, and I went back and forth with him. I'm like, okay, you just don't understand, obviously.
Or just send them to one of your students.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
It's interesting how people think real estate's easy, and they just there's so many different parts to it that they have to be educated in order to make it work.
When you watch HGTV, it does look pretty easy.
It does look easy, yeah.
Right?
For sure.
And that is the guy that's going to pay the most. Right? Again, the guy that's flipping 10 houses a month is not my avatar. That guy is skilled, he's been scarred, and he knows how to negotiate, and he doesn't need it. He just doesn't need it. So, again, it's been 12 months. What is the biggest lesson you've learned since you were on the show last?
Biggest lesson. Well, I think going back to the funding business, I think maybe just planning a little bit better. Like, again, I'm a ready, fire, aim kind of guy, but I think if I would have just sat back and thought about it a little bit more, and then probably advised with people who did lending, I think they would have said, don't do this unless X, Y, Z, right? So I think probably advising from people that have been there and done that. And I've been trying to do that more and more with a lot of things that are new that I'm putting into place. And so I think that's probably the biggest lesson is maybe just take your time a little bit more. And again, I didn't have to do that business. My ego just got in the way of like, oh wow, I made some money on these deals. Now I can make it a, multi-million-dollar company, which I think I could still do, but I got set back quite a bit with these deals that I'm trying to clean up.
Well, there's that question like, how do I scale this? You see these memes, right? Like every entrepreneur, how do I monetize this? How do I scale this?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And we have this habit, like we've already had other successful businesses. Obviously we can just extend our genius to this, and then we don't actually think things through. And that's when we get burned.
Yeah. And then I took away so much time and energy to that company, the new funding company, that I could have been scaling the TV company, which is 1,000 times easier.
Right.
We find clients, we get them results, we, blow them up on TV, and it doesn't take a lot of our time. In fact, it's rewarding because people will text us, oh man, our first month we did 3 deals, we did 5 deals, and the feedback we get from them is energizing. And the feedback I was getting back from the gap funding people was like, my contractor walked away with 10 grand. Can you lend me some more money? Those kinds of conversations.
Yeah, a little bit more soul crushing. So if someone was interested in getting more motivated seller leads from TV, what's the best way for them to do that?
REMTV.com, again, stands for Real Estate Masters, REMTV.com, 10xtv.co right now goes to our real estate investing program, but eventually we'll go to our general 10xtv program where we're getting other industries across the country on TV.
Awesome, cool. So I want you to think about a message you want to leave everybody with while I make a couple of quick announcements. Guys, if you get value today, please like, subscribe, share, comment. If you're listening, leave a 5-star review on Apple and Spotify. We do have our sales leadership training coming up in just a few weeks. Ren Bartlett and myself, we're going to talk about how to find quality talent, how to onboard them, train them, manage them, and ultimately retain them. One of the biggest frustrations we have in running a sales organization is training someone up, teaching them everything you know, and have them walk out the door to potentially compete against you, right? So stop that. If you want to be able to create great salespeople and retain them, be sure to check it out. Go to disruptors.com/sales leadership, and we'll see if it makes sense for you to work with us there. And we do have Part in the Disruption tomorrow and Certainty Talks on Friday. And next week, we've got my good buddy Caleb Pierce, and he's going to be coming out to talk about his business in Carolina. So what are the last thoughts you'd like to leave all the listeners with?
Yeah, so I would say, there's so much possibility in business, and, you don't know your potential until you start achieving it. So for me, I've had a lot of ups and downs over the last 20 years, and, there's been some resets. And when I had those resets, I think almost every business owner's had it where they question themselves and they're like, what did I do? Why did I make these decisions? And you feel like nothing's working. And typically to me, that's a reset. It's learning the lessons, resetting, and figure out how to get to the next level faster. It's kind of like a trampoline, right? Sometimes you just have to come down before you bounce and you go even further up, right? So that's one thing. And the other thing is entrepreneurship doesn't have to be hard. It is overall, but it can be a lot easier. So I think utilizing good people, whether that's employees, mentors, being a part of masterminds, which is where we met, doing things, just working things smarter. I mean, even what I said with the gap funding, like if I would have just had a better system in place, I would have avoided a lot of those pains. Like for our clients, we get on TV, they come back to us and they're like, wow, this is way easier than texting, cold calling, and some of the other things we've been doing. So finding strategies that are just easier on you to implement, and just leveraging yourself overall with people, systems, and, good processes. And it typically, there's someone there that can get you to where you want to be. You just have to find them.
Absolutely. It's great advice. If someone wants to get a hold of you, what's the best way to do that?
TonyJavier.tv is my Instagram handle, TonyJavier.tv. So you can go to my Instagram there. That's probably the best way to get a hold of me.
Awesome. Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thanks, buddy.
Thanks for coming back.
Absolutely.
Thank y'all for watching. See y'all next week.
Shout out to Steve Trang. Jump on the Steve Trang. We real estate disruptors.